pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and be a symbol of perfect friendship among the United cultures.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we come before you today grateful for all the blessings you have provided each of us. We pray for your guidance and wisdom as we work on issues meaningful to the health, safety, and prosperity of others. We ask that you bless our elected officials and that your presence is with them in their duties. I pray you help guide us as we work on local issues and make decisions without bias or judgment. We pray for our public service men and women and ask that you bless them with courage and health as they continually give of themselves. We ask for guidance and healing to all those that are suffering and that you bring them peace. We pray for resolution of conflicts and efforts to help one another. We also acknowledge the passing of Pope Francis and his commitment to the world and the betterment of others. May he rest in peace. We pray for our nation, the world, our local community, and each other. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Here we go.
Well, welcome everybody. We will start with our timed agenda, and our first item is public comments and announcements. We ask that these be respectful in nature, and we have a 3-minute time limit. Do we have any public comments today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Gentlemen. My name is Frank Frenwedeke, and I'm still seeking some help. And by the way, thank you for that prayer. It was beautiful. There's so many things going on in this world nowadays, especially, what they're trying to do with the Constitution. It's a sad situation. But anyway, I'm still seeking some help. Where I live at, the problem is still the same. The junk cars are there, and nothing has improved. And matter of fact, things are getting a little bit worse. And that's why I came here this morning to ask for some help. And I had a meeting with the county manager, and I told him a couple of things that was going there, and I hope that between him and the rest of the county commissioners that you can come to some kind of agreement to help me solve this problem. I feel like I've been living in for the last past 16 years like a second-class citizen, and a lot of my calls have been ignored, and I hope that things will get better. And but that's like I told the commissioner when I talked to him. There was a case, there was the dog barking. It was on a real hot day, and I looked around. I was trying to find where the dog was barking from, and I finally got a look at where he was lying down, and he was tied up, and he was laying down on the ground. But anyway, so I called the animal control, and she came by, and she wrote down something in her vehicle, and then she got off, and she just unlocked the gate and just went in there, regardless of the dogs inside the property. And so she went in there, and after a little bit, the guy's mother that lives next door to me, is Adams, his mother came by, and she got to talking with the animal control, and a lot of people was all riled up about that. But anyway, so she left, and so I wanted to find out exactly what she saw and what she did, and so I had made a an application with the Regional Emergency Dispatch Authority, and I asked them that I wanted a copy of that report that Animal Control had made, and she told me that she did not make one. And I was surprised, and so I wanted to find out exactly what she saw. So I told her, I said, could you tell that lady, animal control lady, that to give me a call. I want to find out exactly what she saw. And she did call me, and she said that she found the dog tied up and all tangled up in a bunch of trash there, and that she untied him.
I'm sorry, sir. Our time is up for public comment today, but we can look into this matter for you. I'm glad that you met with our county manager. And thank you for coming and bringing your concerns before us today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other public comments today? Okay, seeing none, we will move into service awards. And our first service award is Miss Rhonda Hatch, Assessor, 20 years. And then our next one is Anthony Ponce, Detention Center, 15 years. Here's some important ones today. Our next item is our retirement presentations, and our first is Roxanne Brannon, Human Resources, 9/26/2011 to April 30th, 2025. Next, Miss Lori Pruitt, Treasurer's Office, 9/26/2011 to March 31st.
She wasn't getting these next three, weren't gonna be here today, but we did want to recognize them.
Cecilia Salcido, DWI, 2009 to 2025. And then Serapio Valles, Public Works, 2015 to 2025. And do you want to get a picture out there? Yeah. Okay, all right, well, let's go take a quick break out there.
to all of my constituents and fellow employees that I have felt so honored to be your HR director and be supportive of each of your departments, your needs, our employees, each of you. And I've cherished all of my acquaintances, working, mentorship, camaraderie. It's a hard job. We work in a hard environment in government, taking care of people, and I'm just really proud and honored that I got to be a part of Eddy County and government. And I want to tell you all I love you all, and I will miss you all, and I'll be back.
Okay, well, moving into our next item, our IFB RFP bid awards, Economic Development Services, Ms. Tanya Lopez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm here to speak in regards to RFP 2505 for Economic Development Services. It was originally solicited as a multi-vendor award on March 13, 2025. County did receive 2 proposals, one from Carlsbad Department of Development for with the requesting amount of $66,000, and Artesia Chamber of Commerce for $125,000. Both proposals were determined qualified and acceptable, and staff is recommending to award the RFP to both vendors in the requested amount.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Any comments? Everybody comfortable with that?
I'll make a motion to approve RFP 25-05. Second?
Motion is second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
I will abstain.
Voting?
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into our trailing agenda, our first item is approval of commission meeting minutes for March 18th, 2025.
I move to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Abstain?
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you. Next, our expense approval report for March 2025. Do we have any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second?
Motion is second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you. And lastly, our purchase card approval report for March 2025. Any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion is second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next item, we have a treasurer's report for February 2025. This is FYI only. If we have no comments. Everything looks good? Okay, perfect. All right. Item 3, R-25-38, presentation acknowledgement and acceptance of and approval of Eddy County's 2023-2024 audit. Ms. Roberta Gonzalez.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm just here, I'm gonna welcome AJ. He's a partner at Carr Riggs and Ingham. He's gonna be giving the audit presentation for the 23-24 fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, thanks for having me this morning. As Roberta said, my name's AJ. I'm a partner with Car Rigs. We conducted the financial statement audit for 2024. We'll go through a real brief presentation. Please stop me if you have any questions. There's kind of some brief information as it kind of covers the results of the audit itself. We'll go over the timeline because obviously, it's April and we're talking about June of last year. So this kind of like understands what the scope of how that timeline works. The reports, what they mean, where you can find them, and that information. Some financial statement highlights, just kind of drawing into some of the high-level numbers as it relates to the audit itself, and then just a couple things that we see throughout our audit as we go through that. So as I said, the June 30, 2024 audit, we had our entrance conference back in August of last year. All of the execution was July through November, so that's when we do all of the test work. The independent auditor's report and the exit conference were both December 2nd. That was a regulatory deadline. So the first fell on a Sunday, therefore it becomes Monday. It was submitted by that time frame. And then the state released it all the way in March 26th of 2025. So what they do is they do a multi-step review process. It goes back. If there's any comments, I don't think there were any or anything major, it goes back to them and they submit it. They release it, and then it goes to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse by the end of March. So that's why we're here doing the meeting at this point. That's not uncommon for the way the state kind of works as it relates to those financials. I just like to at least let you know, why has it been sitting for 3 months? That's the reason, right? And the state does their piece. The financial statements, they're yours, okay? So we do prepare them as a service as part of our contract, but we have basically 3 reports in the financial statements, okay? So the first report is the independent auditor's report. It's towards the front of the financial statements. That's the opinion on the financials themselves. And that's an unmodified opinion. So what that is, that's the best opinion that you can get. What it means is the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with GAAP. There's no areas where we can't obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence in order to render the opinion. So what that means is that we don't look at every transaction, we don't look at everything down to a dollar, but we look at things from a material perspective, things that could change the users, that would be considered significant and change the user's determination of those financial statements. So whether that's what we call a hard number or a soft number, right? Hard number is something like a bank statement. We can go and see how much cash you have. Soft number is something more like an estimate. What's the pension expense that you have throughout the year? So we obtain we do interviews, we look at documents, we look at industry trends, analytics, all kinds of different things in order to be able to substantiate those numbers from the information that's provided by the county. And so we were able to do that. So great, good job. That's what we anticipate. It's what it's been for years, right? What we would consider what's called a clean audit, right? The second 2 reports in the back of the financial statements. The first one is what we call the Yellow Book report, or the Government Auditing Standards report, and that's over internal controls. Okay, so we don't render an opinion on internal controls, like I said. So that opinion is what we call negative assurance. It says these are items we identified, others may exist that we did not. Okay, so we just it explains the scope of our testing, what we're supposed to look for, and we report anything that we find to you in that. There were no findings noted that rise to the level of reportable under Yellow Book. So anything that would be considered material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or material weaknesses. So nothing that's reportable under those standards. There was one other matter finding, because in the state of New Mexico, we have to report 100% of everything that we find. So this would be in what other states or other areas would be as kind of an other matter. Doesn't rise to the level of board's attention, but it's in there. It's in the back of the report. Management's responses is dictated in there as well. So one other matter finding. So not a whole lot that was there to be looked at. The last report that's in there is the Uniform Guidance Report. So that's over your federal awards. So anyone that spends over $750,000 of federal awards, that will be changing to $1 million in about a year, just so you know the thresholds. But anyone that spends over $750,000 of federal dollars has to go through what's considered a single audit, and we render opinions upon the programs. And we had an unmodified opinion on the COVID-19 Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. So that was the program that we tested. So we test for allowable costs, cost principles, cash management, reporting, all of those types of things, and we render an opinion. And again, unmodified, which means we didn't note anything there, and there were no findings as related to that program. So all that information is in the report. Just kind of gives you an understanding of what we found or what we didn't find. So I think a good outcome of the audit itself. So here, I just kind of have a few areas, just I figured it's helpful for you to kind of get a glimpse of the numbers themselves of what you're looking at. And so when we talk about the statement of net position, that's kind of the county's balance sheet, right? So the overall balance sheet at that day, at that time for the county as a whole. And so you'll see, and I've got some trend lines in here. And so this is kind of what they're made up of, right? So you've had pretty large uptick of assets and cash and investments over the last couple of years, and you see some pretty significant spikes. Of course, obviously, you know, GRTs have been good, gas revenue's been good, property taxes have been up. So, and you guys are, your revenues are outpacing expenses, therefore assets go up, okay? When we look at liabilities, you'll see that trend as well. Liabilities are gonna really mirror the changes in your net pension liability and your OPEB liability. So that's your proportionate share of para or RHC that's sitting on the books, and you'll see that as well. And then that net position is just kind of that balance, okay? And you'll see that change in net position. It's pretty substantial over the years, but again, the impacts of the oil industry and proper cash management. So when you look at your investments over the last 5 years, that total line is your total assets, okay? That's got cash, investments, capital assets, accounts receivable, all of those types of items in there. So you're up to about $800 million, and you look at that last couple year trend from 513 up to 865, and that mirrors that yellow line, which is your cash and investments line, right? So market's been good to you, the oil market, et cetera. Your capital assets, you're still investing in capital, okay? But you just see a much flatter line there just because of your cash reserves. When you look at the liability side, that total line on the top, you got about 78 million in liabilities. As I said, it mirrors that yellow line, which is your proportionate share of the pension and the retiree health care. So what that looks like is if, you know, GASB put those on the books a while back. If para was to close down or RHC was to close down today, that's the amount that in theory would be your proportionate share. That's just a reporting thing. It doesn't affect you as much as it affects a lot of other folks, but it's good to know because again, those are things that the legislature has to deal with. And then your total debt is only about 2.5 million. You guys run pretty low on the debt side. So here's your net position, or what we would consider equity, okay? So your capital, or your total net position is about $595 million. That unrestricted net position is 231. So things that are not necessarily invested in capital assets, they're not restricted for other uses, it's kind of available to be used, which would also pay for those pension liabilities if ever called, right? So that kind of gives you an idea. The bondholders do look at that. Obviously, you guys don't do a ton with those things, but it's good to understand those numbers. When we look at the statement of activities, this is just kind of how you get there. This is your revenues, is your income statement, again, as a county as a whole. So this will include things like depreciation expense. It will include things like pension expense that gets, you know, amortized throughout the years as it relates to those retirement balances. But what you'll see again is, you know, you had some grants and contributions that were up this year, specifically as it related to the Southeast Relief Fund. In fiscal year 24, oil and gas was outpacing the prior year, so same with GRTs. And then again, you have a consistent 5-year trend in your expenses. It is something to note in expenses. It's not like you haven't been moving them up with other things, right? It was up about 24% from 23 to 24, but you know, your income is still outpacing that. So when you look, you have that revenue line on the top, and you just had those really big few years with the oil and gas and the GRTs really from 21 into 24, and you'll see your expenses have gone from 85 to 127. So it's not, again, you guys are investing back into what you need to, okay? So you kind of have a good understanding there. That's county-wide. The other thing that we like to look at, I think, is the general fund, right? Because the general fund is your main operating fund. I think it shows kind of the health of what you have to do if you need to supplement with other areas. Again, you're nothing out of the ordinary from what we've already looked at as relates to oil and gas. Again, you see your expenses has ticked up from 22 to 23, about 18.5%, 15.2 from 23 to 24. But your cash is also growing in that time frame from 35.3 to 84.5 million. So you'll see here's your general fund, and just use your revenues and expenses. So your revenues from 75 up to about 237, and then your expenses from 42 to 59. What this does not include in here is the transfers from the general fund into other funds. So that just, those aren't really expenses, those are supplementing other costs that you might need to deal with. And then here's your cash and investments for the general fund. So kind of gives you an understanding of kind of what those numbers look like, okay? And then really, lastly, so that's kind of as a run through of the financial statements themselves. The last two things that I like to mention is obviously GASB items. There's always something going on. If I look at the trends over the last few years, you've had a lot of estimates that have come on the books, and there's another one coming on in 2025. So it's just a change in how things get reported as it relates to accrued compensated absences. And so there's a couple different little nuances that have to be accounted for in the current year. So I do anticipate those liabilities going up based on the new reporting requirements. There's also another one coming in as it relates to constraints and concentrations. It'll be new standards that are coming in for 25. And there's a few more into 26. There's other stuff that's a little bit further down, and we'll see what the GASB does on those. But if you ever have questions, just reach out to us. Roberta and Jessica, they've always done a really good job of reaching out and being part of webinars. We do free ones, but if there's ever things that come up, say, hey, what are you guys looking at for this? We're here to help in those areas. And then obviously we don't do IT as part of an audit. So when we do work around the IT system, but what we look at is to basically say, when you print me a bank rec, can I rely upon that bank rec? We're not doing threat assessments and penetration testing and risk assessments as it relates to IT cybersecurity. So anytime I'm in front of a board, I just want to make sure it's real clear that's not what we're doing as part of an audit. I always encourage you to work with your IT vendors or a specialist to be able to do that. We've got folks that we refer to. I know you guys have some internally, but it's just in the world we operate in today, there's just been so many ransomware attacks or ACH issues or whatever. You listen to the state, they're seeing them all the time. So just always kind of keeping it on the front of mind of what to be looking at. Ultimately, we just want to say thanks. Roberta, obviously Lori and her team are changing this year, so we've always just been very fortunate to work with the team. Rita as well, as I see that they're here as well. So we really have appreciated the relationship over the last few years, and if there's anything we can do, just to continue to let us know. I think that's all I've got.
Well, thank you, AJ. I know that, you've been helping the county for several years now, and we really appreciate your services, and the same to our finance department. And this is a big deal, and it's really good news to have a clean audit. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
We're 9 months down the road from the year end. There's certain conceptual frameworks of accounting that talk about timeliness and relevance of the numbers and stuff.
Yes, sir.
Do we getting into an issue of that, pushing it 9 months down the road before we get the report issue? And what can we do to help you get a quicker result?
So that's a great question. Obviously, we have it submitted in about 5, right? And the team does a great job to get it there. So our work finished in December. So it really kind of sits at the state, and the state did really good, and then they got slow. The state was really good about getting things out until about January, and then I didn't see much of anything from January to March.
Because we're 3 months from
I know.
starting next.
Oh, yeah.
That's not timely. That's not a timely report.
So the first part is that the exit conference would be talked about. It's just not public until that time. That work is done. So that was done in December. So if there's things that need to be acted upon, that would have, I think, been already taken account. When it comes to reporting, for if you have any sort of issues for bond reporting, there's a couple, which you guys obviously don't, but there's a couple things you can do. One is for Emma, a lot of times they get drafts, or if there's an issue about getting it released from the state, we actually request it early. Like if there's a reason to release it, there on the checklist we can put needs to be out by such and such date for this reason, and they're pretty responsive to that. The other would just be stay on them to get it released. We've done that with a few people saying, hey, this one's supposed to come, what happened to it, where is it? And they'll turn it around pretty quick. So they just get backlogged because ultimately they're the ones who are responsible. So New Mexico's a little different, that the state is responsible for all of the audits. They don't have the budget, time, resources, or people to do them all. So they approve people to contract. That's how we come in, but we have to follow and submit by their time frame, and then it's up to them to release. So it's a little bit backwards. But yeah, so I think that's important. But if there's a need to get it out,
I'd like to get out earlier. Just because of the relevance of the numbers.
I don't disagree. So we can look at putting something on the state. We're at their mercy once it's been submitted.
Could we get a copy of the report before it went to the state?
You could have a draft.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it cannot be discussed in open meeting, and those results, I'll work with.
But at least
I'll
we'd
work
have
with-
numbers, right? You know, we'd have something to look at before
Yeah,
the state.
and I'm interested, you know, the state auditor's office is pretty inefficient. And I'd like to see what they're calling, you know, why they're not going ahead and issuing.
Yeah, they just have to review every single report. There's about 1,000 of them that come in, and so that's where they get to. I know, like I said, I don't know their inner workings. They definitely get a bunch out in the December into January time, and then it seems like it goes on a lull for a couple of months with some other issues. So I don't know that piece is. Speaking to the draft was presented to, because Roberta would review the draft, and it gets reviewed, and it's finalized. It's all done when we have that exit conference. So for all intents and purposes, the work was done in December. It's finished. It's just that, I know that's a question as it relates to the state's review process of it taking 3.5 months. We are just subject to it.
Right. And
But I understand
don't
and
think that was
appreciate the
directed
question.
at you, the
No, I know.
deadline, it was directed at the state.
Yeah.
I'm not,
And I know you're not either. I know that's a question.
I'm just saying, luckily, we don't have a bond issue
Yeah.
to worry about issuing to the bonding agent,
Correct.
our financials. But if we did,
If
or
you did,
if we
you have
ever
that.
do, 9 months down the road, it's not gonna be good.
Correct, yeah. With those Emma disclosure, a lot of times they're 6 months, and so we would just put that in there. And they are responsive to that. So we can, of course, look at that to say we want to get it out
You
sooner.
know, we kind
and
of talked
can-
about doing some bonding for different things over the period, and 9 months won't get it.
No, and again, when those things come up, the state's really responsive to it. So we'll just work together on the 25 as that goes forward, and we can see about getting, requesting it to be out sooner. And we'll go from there. I didn't take it as directed at me. I just wanted to make sure we knew. The only thing that I'm real cautious of is that information being in a public meeting, because the audit is itself a closed discussion with any of the
Can't be
results in
public
those until we get to the release, which was in March. Again, different process. Most people will approve it before it goes to the state. This way, the state does it, and then you guys are seeing it. Ultimately, it's not an action requirement from the state. Just that I'm here to present to you. That's their requirement.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
Perfect.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
AJ.
I
We
appreciate it. Anytime.
Madam Chair and Commissioner, I just want to compliment the entire Eddy County team, the commissioners, the elected officials, Roberta and her team, going through the volume of activity that goes through the finance department, the treasurer's office, all departments. I mean, that's pretty, this type of audit, in my opinion, is pretty remarkable, and it's really great. So, in terms of the results of it.
It's a lot of information. We're pretty invasive for a very long time, and we'll be back in a couple months. So,
No, we agree. Thank you so much to the Eddy County team and everybody involved. We really appreciate it.
thank you.
I make a motion we approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Prost.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have revenue report for February 2025. Ms. Roberta.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager. For our February 2025 revenue report for our gross receipts tax, the county collected roughly $6.8 million. We've collected about $47.6 million total for the fiscal year. This is about $10 million over than what we budgeted so far, which is $37 million. This time last year, we're over about $1 million, and then overall, this time last year, we're over about $2.9 million for gross receipts tax. For oil and gas production, we collected a total of $7.5 million. This was for production and equipment total. This was for November business activity. So back in November, we did collect 27.8 million barrels for that month. It was averaging about 66 $1,058.56. For gas, we had about 138.5 million units for that month, averaging about $2.76. So far this year, we're averaging about 26 million barrels at about $72 a barrel. And for gas, we're averaging about 136 million units at $2.72. Again, this time last year, we're up for the month about $100,000, down slightly overall from this time last year, $731,000. But we have hit our budgeted mark. We budgeted $70.6 million overall this year. We're at $75.2 million roughly overall for oil and gas. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
What is WTI?
$63.71.
I'll make a motion to approve the revenue report for February 25.
Second.
Motion and second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we'll move into budget versus actuals. Roberta.
For February budget versus actuals, countywide, we're still over 100% collected at 105%. Without transfers, we're at 115%. We've collected a little over $207 million in revenue. For expenses, overall, we're about 60%. Granted, we should be around 67% for the month of February. However, without transfers, because our transfers are quite a bit this year, we're only about 87 million expense, which puts us about 23%. For general funds, we're slightly over 100%, collecting roughly 165 million because we have about $2.5 million in transfers for revenue. And for expenses, I don't think this one has the correct page. For expenses, without transfers, we've expensed about $38.2 million in general fund, which puts us at about 49% expense for general fund. So quite a bit under the 67%.
That's great.
And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? I'll look for a motion to approve.
Second, so moved.
Second.
Motion and second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, we have fiscal year 2025-2026 preliminary budget review, discussion and direction.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager, I'm here to present the fiscal year 25-26 interim budget. This will be for discussion, direction, and our workshop number 1. Can minimize that a little bit. The first slide here shows our budget timeline. As you know, the budget started back in February. We released the budget for the departments to input their information. County manager and myself sat down with all the elected officials and directors to discuss each one's budget. We had a review with the county manager. And back in March 18th at the commission meeting, we brought you the projected revenues and some discussion on personnel and PSAs that you guys have. So now we're here to discuss the interim budget. The plan is to bring this back the May 6th meeting to approve the interim budget. And then from there, we'll be bringing it back at the end of July for the final approval before it goes to the state. So first we're going to start off talking countywide numbers and then we'll move into general fund numbers. So countywide for revenue, right now the budget's sitting at $236 million for revenue countywide. 28% of that is our oil and gas, and our GRT, We have GRT budgeted at 67 million countywide. Oil and gas we have at $65.8 million. I did want to point out the oil and gas number did change quite a bit in regards to the projected revenue that we brought you back in March. We were budgeting at about $65 a barrel at 22 million barrels per month. We dropped that down slightly to $52 per barrel, but we're still budgeting the 22 million barrels. So just with the price of oil, it fluctuated quite a bit. Now in April, it dropped below $60. And so we were still comfortable after reviewing the budget countywide to drop that number down and still meet our priorities for the county. Our transfers are sitting at about $57 million. That's about 24% of the budget. And we have about 15 million other revenue, which is all those little multicolored lines. All of them are about 1% or less. That's all your federal, state, interest on investments, your fees and license, items like that. For our expenses countywide, we have budgeted $444 million for expenses. Obviously, the biggest chunk of this is capital. It's about 51%. It's the big blue piece of the graph. We have quite a bit budgeted for capital, as you know. Out of that $225 million, $168 million is for our detention center, our courthouse, and our site work south of town. We have $144 million for our detention center, $15 million for our courthouse, and roughly $8 million for the site work. On top of that, a couple of highlights for the capital. Fire excise has about $40 million in capital that they're budgeting. And then, of course, our road department, our environmental fund, they budget quite a bit in capital. I think road fund is sitting at about $5 million for capital, and environmental is about $2 million. So capital is making up majority of our $444 million. Of course, our transfers are sitting at 57. These transfers consist of supplementing other funds that do not have the revenue source to provide the services that they need to. The two biggest ones are our road funds. We have a transfer of about $23 million, and our indigent fund, we transfer about $27 million. Those two funds are fully supplemented by the general fund. And then we have some other miscellaneous transfers that we have. In particular, we pay for the benefits for our grant funds, which are DWI, our Region 6, and our HIDA. So we pay for their benefits. And because we also put in a 5% COLA, we are budgeting a transfer to pay for those grant fund benefits and that 5% COLA for them, just because they do their budgets 1 year in advance. Our personnel budget is sitting at $68.4 million. And the next slide, I'll go more in discussion about the personnel and some of the changes that are sitting in that $68 million. Our operating, we're sitting at $93 million. And I did want to point out, we do have 2 loans that are going to be expiring this year. As AJ pointed out, we don't have very much debt. Total, we had 4 NMFA loans. 2 of those are expiring this year, which is going to be Cottonwood and Atoka. We did a loan back in December of 2017 and March of 2018, and those will be coming off the books. We'll still have 2 more loans, which is Happy Valley and Otis. They'll be expiring. One of them will be expiring in a couple years. The other one will be expiring in about 4 or 5 years. So in discussion of the personnel budget, I wanted to kind of highlight some of the items that consist of the $68.4 million. Right now, included in the budget as it sits today, there are 4 new positions. There was 11 total positions requested, but 4 of them we approved to be put in the interim budget. Those positions, 3 of them are under the county manager's direction, which are administrative coordinator, an IPRA coordinator, and a webmaster and tech coordinator. And then the 4th position is a full-time nurse in the detention center, specifically for their MAP program that's new to them. Reclassifications, we do have 18 reclassifications sitting in the budget. There was 52 reclassifications requested. Majority of those reclassifications, a lot of the departments wanted to do essentially their own market. So because the county manager, and I believe he discussed this with you guys last commission meeting, we did put in $200,000 for a pay compensation plan study to look at all departments overall. So what we did is we ended up taking those reclassifications out until we had a better chance to look at that countywide. So that was the majority of those taken out. Out of those 18 reclassifications, I did want to point out 3 of them are for your deputies, the deputy assessor, deputy clerk, and deputy treasurer. We did increase them to 95% of what we based it off with the treasurer, because the assessor and the clerk never got that increase like the treasurer did, but we based it off 95% of what the treasurer is making, so it came out to $122,000. So 3 of those classifications are within that. The other, that's $234,000. This is technically a frozen position being unfrozen with the reclassification. It's the governmental affairs director. It was a position that was created several years ago. We filled that position for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then it was vacant. We froze that position. The county manager has now requested for that position to be unfrozen this year. Right now, we're sitting at allocated positions at 488. There are 81 employees sitting at a step 13, meaning they are maxed out on the grade and step table. There are still 403 employees eligible to receive the step increase. So that cost is totaling $337,000. As the county manager discussed last commission meeting, we did put in some significant benefits and changes this year for all county employees. The first one is a 5% COLA across the board to all employees. It would be effective July 1st, and that cost is roughly $2 million. The next one is for the county to pay 100% insurance for all employees. Right now, we pay 100% insurance for the employee itself, and then we pay 60% for anything above and beyond that. So we'd be increasing that to pay 100% for no matter what plan you're on, across the board to every single employee. So that's the biggest ticketed item for our personnel budget. It's about $6.4 million. The next item, we did need to budget an increase for our insurance premiums. They do go up every year. They've been averaging going up anywhere from 5 to 8% each year. So we did put in a 15% insurance increase for this year. The next benefit that was included in the budget, which is new this year, is paying 75% para contribution for all county employees. What that means is for the retirement para plan, the employee is required to pay a certain percentage, and the employer is required to pay a certain percentage. And what we're going to do is pay 75% of the employee's portion. Right now, the municipal plan, which is usually the administration side of it, we are already paying 75%. So this would affect your detention, your sheriff's office, and your fire service. Those plans right now, we're paying 56% and 57% on those ones. So what that kind of means for each employee, if you're a sheriff's office, a detention officer, or a fire employee, you're roughly paying about 8% for your para. That'll drop down where you're only having to pay about 4 and change percent. So that would be the benefit to those 3 categories. And that cost would be about $843,000. Yeah, sure.
So regarding that, Chair, Commissioners, Roberta, correct me if I'm wrong, that's 75%, that's the maximum amount that we're permitted to pay by law, right?
That is correct, yes. Yes. So we would be maxing out that benefit. The other para increase that we had was Senate Bill 72. This was enacted several years ago. It basically said that we needed to increase the para on each of those categories by 0.5% for 4 years. This year, in fiscal year end 26, will be the 4th year for that. So this will be the last time that we see that increase. And then that cost is $1.2 million. We have our longevity pay of $232,000. This would affect all employees with the exception of the sheriff's office. They do have their own longevity pay, so this is only for all other county employees besides the sheriff's office. And then the other benefit would be having 40 hours upfront vacation. Again, I know this was something the county manager had discussed. This is another benefit that we would like to put into the personnel budget. This would give each employee 40 hours come July 1st to use or to lose come June 30th at year end, at which time they would get another 40 hours at the beginning of each fiscal year. Moving into the general fund budget, we do have a balanced budget of $147.8 million for the general fund. This slide was presented in the revenue projection. All the numbers stayed the same with the exception of oil and gas production. As I mentioned, that number in the revenue projection presentation was at 65.7 million. We did drop it down to 53.8 million. However, we did still feel comfortable with it. County manager and I both discussed it, and we felt comfortable dropping that down. And we were still able to meet our goals. We had a balanced budget for general fund, and we were still able to produce all these benefits, which you're seeing now in the general fund budget. As far as general fund expenses go, this kind of gives you a breakdown of each department within the general fund. It shows you what is currently budgeted now for fiscal year 2025 and what's being presented to you now for 2026 and the percentage change for each. Each department is broken down by personnel, operating, and capital. I wanted to just touch on a few highlighted in some of the departments. Overall, there wasn't significant changes that each department requested. Obviously, you'll see a change in personnel for each department because there was quite a bit of personnel changes, so there's quite a bit of increase. But as far as your operating and capital, there wasn't significant changes that each department requested. I did want to point out, obviously, that there is $200,000 budgeted for a compensation pay plan study in the commission budget. Your community support, that's where all your PSAs sit, such as your Carlsbad Department of Development, your fair board, things like that, Artesia Chamber. We did do a general 10% increase for each PSA with the exception of the county fair, obviously. So that's what those changes are in community support. Your county manager's budget, you'll see obviously did increase quite a bit. However, our public information office, although it's not new, it's never had its own separate budget, so we did create its own separate budget so Savannah could operate doing what she needed to do. So there was an increase there for creating a new department. And then, of course, 3 of your 4 new positions that are being requested are sitting in the manager's budget as well, too. And then the last biggest change is our multi-line and law enforcement insurance is going to be going up this year, so we did do a budget increase of $1.3 million for that insurance as well, too. And then in your detention center, that's where your 4th position is sitting. Other than that, like I said, there wasn't significant increases that were being asked in each department. So this kind of just gives a summary of the general fund expense budget. For personnel, it's at $57.9 million, which is 27% of the overall general fund budget. Capital is $3.5 million. And I'm sorry, that's not 27% of the budget. It's a 27% increase change from last year. Our operating is sitting at $32.2 million, and our transfers for general fund are $54 million. So out of the $57 million total transfers, general fund has the majority of that, $54 million. And again, that's your indigent and your road fund are your biggest transfers out. The next slide is more of a county-wide outlook when it comes to revenue and expenses. So for 2026, again, we have $236 million budgeted for revenue. That breakout is general fund has $147.8 million, and all your other special revenue funds have about $88.5 million. For general fund operational and special revenue operational and personnel, it totals $161.8 million. 90 million of that is general fund and 71 million is all your other special revenue funds. If you include all county transfers of the 57 million, that leaves about $17.5 million of available county funds. And those county funds, obviously what's not captured here is capital expenses here. The next slide, again, kind of gives a county-wide outlook. This is more dealing with cash. So projected beginning cash for 25-26 overall was 600 million. The breakdown of that would be 225 million for general fund and 375 million for all your other special revenue funds. If you take into account all your countywide revenue and you subtract all your personnel, operating, capital, and transfers, plus if you add in an additional $230 million, this would be able to pay for 1 year of all operational and personnel countywide. That leaves about $162 million. And I do note there that it's unavailable for general use because that $162 million is sitting in all your special revenue funds. That $230 million that's paying for that 1 year reserve county operational and personnel, that's what's sitting in the general fund reserve there. And that's the way we have operated now for the past few years, is to always keep 1 year reserve to essentially pay for countywide operational. If something were to ever happen, we could pay for that for 1 year countywide. And with that, that kind of summarizes the highlights of the 25-26 budget. I'll stand for any questions if you have any.
One, Roberta, you mentioned that we have some loans outstanding. What
Yes.
kind of interest rate are we paying on those loans?
About 3%. They're pretty good. They're a pretty good percentage because they're NMFA loans.
Okay, and what are we making on our investments? Because what I'm wondering is, we got lots of resources, you know, are we better off to pay the loans off? You know, that we have the resources. I'm not a debt person, so if I can pay it off and save myself the interest.
You're absolutely correct. And when we got into the NMFA loans, that is one downside of the NMFA loans. You cannot pay them off early.
Oh, you cannot?
We cannot.
Early payment penalty.
Because that's exactly what I would do right off the bat, is pay them off, is because the last two that we have, the two loans that we had were $400,000 and $378,000. That's what's still left on. But no, we're not able to pay them off early, unfortunately.
So we can't pay off?
No.
That sucks. The other thing, when we're talking about oil and gas revenues, I did note, talking with the head of the BLM here, that 14 offices across the country, other than this one, have done 476 drilling permits since October to the end of March. This office has done over 3,000 drilling permits for the Permian Basin. So when we talk about production going down, it doesn't sound to me like that's going to be the case. It looks like that the production could go up with as many drilling permits that is being issued in our one area that's, what is it, about 6 times what the rest of the nation's done. Those are 2 comments.
Can you repeat how many permits they issued?
I'm sorry?
How many permits did they issue?
In this office, over 3,000 since October. 476 in all the other 14 offices across the nation.
Across the nation?
Across the nation.
Wow.
476 since October. We're over 3,000.
Thanks for sharing that.
Somebody's doing the heavy lifting.
Okay.
So when we talk about, you know, budgeting less,
Well, budgeted less for the dollars per barrel, not the production.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, but to me, you know, one of the things about budgeting, that when you budget, when you underestimate your budgeted revenue, you underestimate the amount of services you can provide to the community. So there has to be a happy switch off there. And so you can't be exceedingly underestimating the revenue, because then you are underserving your community. My opinion.
So, good point.
Okay. Any other comments or anything? Okay, I will look for a motion to approve fiscal year 2020.
This one doesn't need it, it's just discussion and direction.
Oh,
so-
that's right, that's
Yep,
right.
So if there's no other comments or questions, that's everything, and if there is none, the anticipation would be to bring this back May 6th with essentially no changes, unless something else comes up from now till then.
Okay. All right, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Roberta. We appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much.
Great presentation.
Mhm. All right. Item 7, consideration of resolution R-25-43, approving a 5% COLA increase for fiscal year 25-26. County Manager Gallagher.
Great. So, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. As you heard from Roberta, this has incorporated into the budget for 25-26. 5% COLA, this was discussed at the March 18th board meeting. The approximate cost for this 5% increase for all county employees effective July 1 would just be under $2 million. And now stand for questions that the board may have.
I don't have any questions. I think it's a necessity for the rising costs and everything else.
I think so too.
Agreed.
I agree.
I'll make a motion to approve R-25-43.
I second.
Motion in 2 seconds. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost.
Yes.
Commissioners, thank you. For the next item for your consideration is Resolution R-25-44. Again, you heard from Roberta. This item was incorporated into the preliminary budget. We discussed this at the March 18th meeting. Approval of this resolution would allow Eddy County to pay 100% of the health insurance premiums for employees. The approximate cost of this is just under $6.4 million, assuming that all positions are filled for the entire year.
Right.
And we're hopeful that this item will do a few things. One, it will increase the take-home pay of our employees. Second, this will be a very strong recruitment strategy as we look at recruiting some of those difficult positions, particularly detention, SO, fire, a few others. But again, this is already incorporated in the preliminary budget. You gave us some great feedback at the March 18th meeting, and I'll stand for questions that you may have.
I have no questions. I think this is also, vital. We want our employees to know that we're here to help them. And I think that this is going to be a very good tool to help us recruit for these difficult positions.
I make a motion, we approve.
Second?
Motion is second. Please call for the vote.
Trost, second.
Yes.
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost.
Yes.
Commissioners, thank you. The next item for your consideration is Resolution 25-45. Again, this item was discussed at the March 18th board meeting. This resolution would allow or would approve employees being credited 40 hours of personal leave credit effective July 1. More importantly, it will provide employees their very first day here at the county a balance of 40 hours of personal leave credit. The manner in which this leave may be used will be the same as annual leave or sick leave. They would still have to go through the same approval process with their supervisor to use the leave. The idea behind this is that while we can provide employees with competitive pay, and we can advertise competitive pay, and we're looking at paying insurance, and we have a great benefits package here at the county. We're trying to recruit employees that have some experience under their belts. And with that, we know when they leave their current employer, they're potentially leaving, years of leave accumulated, or they're at a certain position, certain spot in their position or their years of experience that they're accumulating leave at a higher rate than what your typical first-time entry-level employee is doing. So what this does is we recognize, you all would be recognizing that there's life outside of work, and helping employees transition from their current places of employment, be it at a police department, be it at a fire station, be it at wherever, here at Eddy County, granting them 40 hours of personal leave credit. It's a use it or lose it type of leave. You have the fiscal year to use it. You can't sell it back, and effective July 1 for all employees, and I'll stand for questions that you may have.
I think that these three resolutions just really go to showing the support for all the county employees. It helps with recruitment, but also with retention. It's good solutions that I think are a necessity.
I agree.
Okay, look for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, budget adjustments, requests for fiscal year 24-25. Ms. Roberta.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the attached budget adjustments were requested individually by certain departments. Just to go over them very quickly, our Public Information Office, as you know, discussed in the interim budget, it's a fairly new department. At this fiscal year, they don't have their own separate budget, so they're utilizing the county managers, which obviously wasn't anticipated to be used. So there's $25,000 being requested for some marketing and stuff that's going to be used from now to the end of the fiscal year. Finance, the last commission meeting, you guys approved Cherry Beckert to do some of our GASB work. The anticipation was for them to start in July. They would like to start as soon as possible, so I will need that money before the fiscal year starts. So we're requesting a budget adjustment of $38,000. However, we're not going to be using all of that this fiscal year. The next two for information technology and human resources, because of finance's requirement for the new GASB for our SPIDAs, and SPIDAs stand for subscription-based information technology agreements. We do put all of those expenses into one GL, and because that's fairly new, a lot of the departments did not budget for those specific ones to come out of a specific GL. So we're essentially moving money into those GLs to account for those. Community services, for Steve Markowski's Clean and Beautiful grant, all he's doing is he's moving $9,000 from operational to capital in order to purchase a roll-off. We are doing a budget adjustment to the farm and range. There was an invoice that was paid this fiscal year for the prior fiscal year, so we're just including some more money out of the cash balance to pay for the remaining of the invoices that were going to be coming in. And then our indigent requested a budget adjustment for burial services for $5,000 to anticipate any other burial services from now till June 30th. And I'll stand for any questions.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve the budget adjustment request for fiscal year 24-25.
Second.
motion and a second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item is reprogramming amendment number 2 for the New Mexico HIDA.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, this is another reprogramming amendment number 2 for our HIDA program out of the Director's Office in Las Cruces for their G24 grant. All we will be doing here is moving $2,600 from one line item to the other. because we are their fiscal agents, this will probably now be more of a normal thing. Every time we need to do a reprogramming or modification, they'll need to be sent to the board for approval before that money is spent.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the G24 grant for HIDA.
Second?
Motion and second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roberta. Okay, next item, proclamation of Public Safety Telecommunicator Week, Miss Bambi Kern.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. We bring before you a resolution, or a proclamation rather, to recognize the hard work and dedication of our 911 telecommunicator specialists. They are trained personnel that are state licensed with over 240 continuing education hours to keep up with police, fire, and EMS. So each week in April, we like to take a week to appreciate their service and their voices in the dark and often heard but never seen.
I love that, yes. Look for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second?
Motion and second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost,
Yes.
Thank you.
And please pass along that we appreciate all the hard work that they do.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Thank you.
Okay.
It's my turn. I may need Josh, if there are questions to be asked. In order to transfer property that the county owns, one of the things that the state requires is that property, there's a determination made that the property is no longer needed for public benefit or use. And we have four of these that I'm bringing up one at a time here. The first one's La Huerta, that's the fire station in La Huerta at 115 North La Huerta Circle. In 2023 in September, the commission voted to, in essence, close this particular fire station. And as such, we no longer get money from the state fire marshal's office. It's a dilapidated, it's not a good place. We don't any longer need that particular fire station based on fire and rescues. You know, it's reorganized its department. It's gotten, and they're trying to get rid of some of their trim down because they've got centralized in various districts out here, the stations and apparatus. They've got an agreement with the city on, automatic aid. The other problem here is to fix up that station at La Huerta would cost more than you tear it down or you remediate it, and when you sell the property, you won't even get what you spent to do all that. So I would like to have the commission consider making a motion and passing that motion to indicate that the property is no longer needed for county business, and also indicate that it ought to be, well, we can go out to private sale, bids, etc., or auction. And we've had pretty good luck with going out to private sales in the past, and including that motion that we don't sell it for any less than the appraised value of that property. And we do have appraisals that we obtained on those pieces, this one and the following fire stations. So I don't
have DFA approval
to do what?
to sell?
Yes, that's the whole problem. We have to go to State Board of Finance if we're gonna sell anything over $25,000. You have to go up, they make you present your appraisal, the contract, and they want to have the decision made by the commission that that property is no longer needed or necessary by the county for any operating or business of the county. And there's nothing we can do with that fire station.
And so any acceptance that we take on that will be contingent on acceptance by the DFA?
That's correct. The contract, we're gonna sell this, we need to sell it just like it is, just like it sits, so we don't have to spend the money to fix it up. It's gotta be more than the appraised value, and they've gotta know from up front that we have to take it before the State Board of Finance in Santa Fe to get approval to actually complete that sale. And they conceivably can come in and make various changes to your contract. That hadn't happened in the past when we've done this. But But I'd like to see to where we can go ahead and also sell that by a private sale.
I think with what's been presented to us, tearing this down and the others down, since they're not usable for us, would cost the county money versus selling them to a private individual that's ultimately coming back to the county. So it's a huge net positive on these 4 coming before us. So with this, I'll make a motion to sell 115 North La Herta Circle fire station to a private
Can I
individual.
ask a question?
Yeah,
Before you
sorry.
finish your- Can we just group all these together? I mean, I'm assuming they're all the same and to do the approval?
I think we probably can do it, but I just thought it may be easier because we're gonna have to submit these separately to,
Yeah, but if we
DFA.
approve all of them at once, right, we go through, because it's all.
I can go through each one of them and you can, whatever you, however you wanna do it.
It don't matter to me. I mean.
I think it just saves us time, but it's better for their paperwork.
Right, and we need to have the motion include the fact that this property is no longer needed for county operations, and
Part
that
of
needs to
our-
be part of it.
No, I just thought we could save,
Yeah,
4 items?
yeah.
I just like to sit up here and talk. So maybe-
That's what I thought.
We'd love to hear you.
I never got my time in the limelight here.
Exactly my point.
Well, since
Thanks,
Ernie
sir.
couldn't cut your time short, I'll again make the motion to, since the property at 115 North La Herta Circle is no longer needed by the county, to sell the motion, or sell it to a private individual.
Second.
Motion and second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Strost,
Yes.
The next one is the Otis Fire Station out on Howard Road, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. This one's a little bit different because it's not a dilapidated structure, but it's still in decent shape on the outside. Inside needs a lot of work done. But again, it's one of those because of the department's modifications, that we've got a professional service, fire service now. We've got mutual aid with the city of Carlsbad, and they're trying to streamline their function. We don't have a use for that structure out there. And it would take interior remodeling and those kind of things. But again, on the 5th, the county commission voted to cease using that as a fire station. So we don't get any funds from the state anymore for upkeep, maintenance, anything. It's all county
Potential
funds.
liability.
Yeah, and the liability out there, somebody going in the building, there's all kinds of things, but we don't have a use for it at this point. And the same thing, we need a motion that indicates that we've determined, the county commission has determined that it's no longer needed for
So
county
moved.
business. And we're gonna sell it for at least a fair market value.
Motion
Praise
and a
back.
second. Please call.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Strost,
Yes.
4130 West Texas, that's the Happy Valley one, is a little bit different situation. You voted last year, when it came before the commission, you said, find somebody to buy that thing, and get rid of it. We hadn't been used as a fire station in 10 years. And I think what's been going on, people have been storing things out there, people throwing junk out there.
And we even had a buyer at that time.
Yeah, we did. But that was something that the commission actually made that determination back then, but I want formally to make that you make the motion that it's no longer needed as for county business purposes, and to sell it to a private sale for no less than the appraised value.
So moved.
Second. Second.
Motion and a second, please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Strost,
Yes.
Going on 4213 Spencer, that's the Joel station. It has, a lot of work needs to be done to it, and the same rationale, we have a professional fire department now with memorandum of agreement with the city of Carlsbad Fire Department. And if we were to remodel or tear that down, we'd never get our money back out of it. So I would,
Plus, the city of Carlsbad has a station
right,
sitting
Right.
right on the highway
yeah.
from Joel.
So it's just, there's no reason to have that station.
Right.
And the county needs to get shed of those things, because we're gonna get no help on that one either, because it has been closed as a fire station, so.
I make a motion.
I second.
Motion is second. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost.
Yes.
Guys, just try to cut it short.
Thank you, Cass.
No, I'm
Not
trying-
intentional.
I'm just trying to help you. I'm just trying to help you, Cat.
I know.
I'm like the IRS, I'm here to help you.
Yeah, I've heard that.
All right, next we have our annual Eddy County Assessor's Property Evaluation Plan and Budget Reports. Ms. Rhonda Hatch.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager. I believe that Adrian submitted to you guys kind of what I'm going to go over. I'm just going to hit a few highlights on those two reports that I sent to you. January is one of our busiest months, and this is when we process mobile home, livestock, and personal property renderings, along with requests for the head of household and veterans exemptions. In 2024, the county saw 291 new businesses, and that prompted us to distribute 1,240 business personal property forms. We had 4,052 mobile home postcards that we sent out, and 303 livestock forms, all of which of these forms must be returned to our office by the end of February. And if that is not done by the owner, they receive a 5% penalty on their taxes. During this time also, our appraisers are focusing on finalizing sales, permits, splits, and reappraisal to ensure accurate values are on our notice of values. In accordance with state statute, residential properties will see a 3% increase in property values if they are not aligned with market value. The 3% cap excludes non-residential properties and does not apply if there has been a recent sale or any new construction added to the property. At this time, we are not observing a decline in the market. We are seeing increases in the market. But if such a change occurs, we will revise our values to align with market conditions at that time. We did mail out our notice of values on April 1st, and property owners have 30 days from that date to protest their property values. So right now we are right in the middle of our protest season. Last year we received 137 protests, which was an increase from 74 from the previous year, with 4 of those properties proceeding to a formal hearing for resolution. House Bill 47 has been signed into law for the tax year 2025, which increases the veteran exemption from $4,000 to $10,000. Although the notice of values were mailed out, they reflected the $4,000 exemption due to the governor not having signed it at that time. But at this time, the 2025 tax bills will reflect that new $10,000 exemption, which we have already updated our system to reflect that. If a veteran is wanting a copy of an amended NOV, they are welcome to come into our office to get a copy that reflects that $10,000 exemption. The implementation of the percentage of veterans' disability will be addressed a little more this year, with an anticipated rollout for tax year 2026. So far, we have 1,166 veteran exemptions, 238 disabled veteran exemptions, and 8,305 head of household exemptions. In June, we receive our state assessed values from the property tax division, which are then entered into our system to generate our certification, reflecting both state and locally assessed values. The certification values must be submitted to the state by June 15th for analysis and determination of the tax rates for the year. Our total 2025 net assessed value at this point stands at $5.4 billion, with the majority deriving from state assessed values totaling $3.2 billion. That will, those values are based on 2024 values for state assessed, and we will receive those in June to see what those values will do. We are expected to, notable increases include $78 million in residential land and improvements and $3.4 million in non-residential land and improvements in 2024. Additionally, residential mobile home values rose $3 million and business personal property values increased by $6.9 million. We witnessed a decrease in ag land and livestock values of $253,000. This reduction is primarily due to its sale for residential and other developments, while the decline in livestock values is primarily due to drought conditions prompting the sale and relocation of livestock out of the county. In September, our office receives the tax rates from the Department of Finance, and those rates will go to you in September for your approval. And after the rates are approved, we enter those into the system and prepare the tax roll to send it to the treasurer, and they will distribute the tax bills. While the treasurer's office is responsible for mailing out tax bills, we also address a variety of inquiries from property owners about their bills. In 2024, the Deed and Mapping Department finalized 3,320 deeds, 115 subdivisions, and 38 boundary surveys, while there was 940 building permits issued in Artesia, 1,998 in Carlsbad, and 121 state-issued permits in 2024. Our appraisers adhere to a 6-year appraisal plan and utilize the EAGLE program to ensure efficient and accurate appraisals. We had a flyover in 2025, and that has been completed, and we now have our new images. Typically, we allocate funds for at least one vehicle each year. However, this year we decided not to, given that we currently have 3 appraiser positions still to fill. And so we believe that the existing vehicles that we have are still sufficient for what we need. So my focus this year is to fully staff our appraiser team, and if we are able to do that, we will look to budgeting for a new vehicle next year. And that the vehicles are funded by our 1% fund. We had 2 appraisers this year that have successfully completed their required courses, and they are now certified appraisers. Earlier this month, property tax came down and issued their certificates for that accomplishment, and we are very proud of them. Those classes are very challenging, and they did very well on those. And we also had a couple of employees that went through the Leadership New Mexico program. They did their last few days last week, and they went through the program, and I'm happy that they had the opportunity to participate. That's an exceptional program. In 2025, several of our employees will be engaging in various classes and training programs. This will range from some of the new employees coming in to get their initial training, and then it also, some of our employees that have been in our office for a while will be advancing to higher certification levels and continuing education to those that are already certified. Our primary goal for 2025 is to have a fully staffed team, and we are making solid progress with the recent hiring of several new employees. Currently, we still need to fill 3 appraiser positions and 1 mapping position, and these roles typically require about 2 years of training to really have a knowledge of what their role is. And our appraisers are undergoing cross-training to appraise both commercial and residential properties. And while our clerks are also being trained in mobile homes, livestock, and personal property. So if anyone is out for an extended period of time, we hope that there are other employees that will be able to take on those roles as they're out. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm available by phone, email. You're welcome to come in my office and meet with me personally, and I'd be happy to answer anything that you may have questions on, and I'll take any questions at this point if you have any. No?
Sounds like good things are happening in
Yes,
the
they
assessor's
are.
office.
Thank you for the breakdown.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
All right. Is everybody doing okay? Does anybody need a break or anything? No? Okay. All right. Next item, we have approval of state fire fund Chief Joshua Mack.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, this is just our annual State Fire Fund application. I need your approval for Madam Chair to sign electronically, and then we'll submit it to the state. That just secures us for our funding, which will be determined in about end of May, first part of June on the amount that we'll get. So,
Okay.
stand for any questions.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Kara Cook for reclassification of office administrator to deputy clerk.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we're asking that our office administrator position gets reclassified back to just deputy clerk position.
I'll look for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have two other reclassifications. DWI Adult and Youth Preventionist Educator to Community Wellness and Outreach Coordinator, Ms. Deborah Hampton.
Good morning to each of you. I'm coming for you to ask for a reclassification of two positions. The first one is the DWI Adult and Youth Preventionist Educator. I want to reclassify that to Community Wellness and Outreach Coordinator. This position was last revised back in 2019. In 2024, DFA updated this component of our grant to Community Wellness and Outreach. And so in order to align our department with DFA, we're going to reclassify that position to Community Wellness and Outreach. And there will be added responsibilities to this position. The next position is reclassifying the bookkeeper position to fiscal manager. I think this position was last updated in 2018. And so I wanted to reclassify this and rename it to fiscal manager.
I make a motion to approve.
Can we do that? Can we do both of those in one? Or could it do different line items?
No, I think we have to do them separately.
So a motion to change to Community Wellness and Outreach Coordinator?
And then do we have a second?
I'll second
Second.
that.
Okay.
Or-
Motion and a second.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost.
Yes.
And now reclassify to fiscal manager.
I move to reclassify.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost.
Yes.
Thank you.
I like to go up there and sit.
You're busy today, Cass.
Well. You guys are terrible. For years, we've always had, at the first year you do your Open Meetings Act resolution. For years, it's been first and third Tuesdays of every month, and that's how things have gone on, and we do that all the time. And so, times have changed. We've got a whole lot of things that everybody in here does. I mean, commissioners, the staff, except maybe that guy.
He dances.
And it makes
He
it tough
dances.
when everybody's preparing for meetings and having 2 meetings a month. Poor Adrian and that group down there, they work horribly long days just to get, and so we end up with 2 meetings. In the meantime, you all could all be out going to legislative conferences, meeting with other businesses, doing all kind of things that are really the county's business. And then we can set a better schedule where we have maybe 1 meeting a month. We ought to consider amending and determining how many meetings and when you want to have these meetings, as opposed to every time, first and third Tuesdays, because it takes 10 days probably or more to get all of that ready by every department head, the county commissioners. I mean, you're preparing for this also, the county manager. And we need to amend the existing resolution for the Open Meetings Act and get that first and third Tuesdays out of there of the month, and consider what we do in process in the future, because that is not working.
We agree.
I think that's a big step.
It is, and there's a resolution in the packet, and it's resolution R. What is it? I didn't.
2547.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mike has spoke to us individually about this, and I agree. I can't imagine all the prep time on the staff side, getting everything ready. We see your emails, like we were just talking at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, about things. And, we appreciate it very much, but we want employees to enjoy their time outside of work as well. And so, yes, it would be nice if we had some time to kind of plan for other legislative things. So I think that this was, as you said, great foresight, Commissioner Trost.
Let me ask this, could we consider tabling this and let us think about it until the next meeting?
What are your concerns with the schedule?
Well, one thing I for like me, I made plans for the rest of the year, taking into account the first and third Tuesday of the month. Now we're talking about possibly changing that. I don't know how many people, but I've got trips and stuff planned around
Sure.
already for the fall, planned around our commission meeting. Now we're talking about changing it, and which might
I understand.
interfere with those plans. I mean, and my work schedule and stuff too. Now I gotta say, I did enjoy the fact that since April 15th fell on a Tuesday this year, that we were able to move it to today rather than my busiest day of the year. So that was nice, but I think it ought to be the exception rather than the rule.
You do have, there's 3 meeting dates that are not going to be on either one. The second meeting of the month is what it is. There's 3 dates that are changed. Because you're actually on 4 of these, we're having, well, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
They're actually the second meeting date of the month that was already scheduled at the beginning of the year. Go ahead.
And those dates that are not on one of the traditional dates are working around, I'm assuming, I didn't really study it too well, but working around some other event or?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, you'll see that, so we'll take for instance in October, you're scheduled right now to meet October 7th and October 21st. The proposed revised schedule only has you meeting on October 21st. The big part of that is because the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association Conference starts October 6th. And for myself, with Eddy County being one of the top 2 producing counties of oil and gas in the country, I would advise the commission to consider attending NMOGA as an annual conference. I think there's a lot of value in county staff and some of the elected officials and the commissioners attending that. So the change in October would only be to remove the October 7th date. In November, you're scheduled right now to meet November 4th and November 18th. This change would only have you meeting November 18th, so we would be removing the November 4th meeting. Then in December, you're scheduled right now to meet December 2nd, which is the week after Thanksgiving. And what ends up happening is that board employees or staff or whatever, they end up working that weekend prior to the commission meeting, regardless of whatever that weekend is. So the only change in December would be removing the December 2nd meeting and keeping that December 16th date. As you look at, there's a change in June. We propose instead of having the meeting June 3rd and June 17th, only having it on June 10th. If the board would prefer just to keep the June 17th meeting, that would be perfectly fine with staff. We proposed a June 10th meeting because the annual New Mexico Counties Conference is during the week of June 16th, 17th. So wanting to encourage the commissioners to attend the annual New Mexico Counties Conference in June. That's the purpose behind the June 10th date there. July 9th, 29th, that's typically a special meeting that the commission typically has in July. Is going to be the last Tuesday of the month or sometime during the last week. You typically will see requests for a special meeting to accommodate the time needed for the final budget. So in July, you're currently scheduled the week July 1st, which is the week of 4th of July, and July 15th. We could certainly keep the July 15th meeting, but we'll end up still having to have that special meeting on July 29th. And I think that's what the board typically does, is have that special meeting. So,
see, like on that one?
Yes, sir?
I would be out of town. I won't be in town on July 29th.
We'd be having one regardless.
Right. Yeah.
So
Right, we would have
we'd be
an
having a meeting regardless.
Yeah.
Even if we kept these 2 dates, we're
But
still
if we
gonna
was
have that.
gonna, we could schedule it. I'm leaving the 27th.
Understood. So I think, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Carlson, I think what I'm hearing is that for the treasurer's office to have enough time to complete all of their work and to have the final budget in, that's how much time was needed. And I think that, Roberta, is that what we typically see is the last week in July?
Yeah, that's true, because I have to wait for the treasurer's office to balance before I can start doing my financials, my year ends, the budget.
Correct. So we could talk to the treasurer to see if that could happen sooner, but typically that's how much time they typically take, and that's when you guys typically will meet. So the first item though was for, what's that?
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Also on the June meetings,
Oh, that's right.
I have a special election on
Oh,
June
yeah.
3rd. So this June 10th collaborates with the timing of getting the canvas approved.
Yeah.
So we don't have to call for a special meeting also.
Yeah.
And
And
so
then-
it would allow for, because we have to do it within so many days?
Yes.
Right.
You can pass my resolution that I propose and talk about these dates in the next.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's 2 items before you,
Right.
Madam Chair, Commissioners. The first is just amending the Open Meetings Act resolution, and the purpose behind that would allow you then to consider a revised schedule.
Right.
All right, so we have to pass one before the other.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I would move to amend the Open Meetings Act schedule, the
Second.
resolution.
Motion is second. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Trost.
Yes.
And then, Madam Chair, Commissioners, this action item before you is to revise the meeting dates. And I'm happy to go through that, happy to table it, whatever the board would like to happen. We just tried, these dates were selected, I mean, there's actually 4 of the 19th of August, the 21st of October, the 18th of November, and the 16th of December the same. July 29th, again, that's typically when the board has a special meeting to consider the final budget. And then consolidating your special meeting in June. You typically would have 3 meetings in June, potentially, but consolidating it to 1 meeting June 10th.
And then the only one you didn't cover is September, that date's different. Is there something that we're working around there? From
I
the
think it was
16th?
just, no, we
No.
could keep it the 16th. But that was the only, no. We'll just try to have it as further in the month so that when department heads or there's updates, there's, time from the previous meeting to provide, meaningful items or anything else.
It makes sense to me. I mean, the only kind of gap that I see is that June, July timeframe.
That's a big gap,
That's
but-
a big gap, but I guess we have an opportunity to call a special meeting if there's some business that needs to be addressed in that gap.
What do you think, Ernie? Do you need some time?
I mean, we're gonna, I mean, we can change them now, so I guess we could change it if it becomes a big issue. I just know, just letting you know that I'm not gonna be here that week of the 29th. I've already committed to something else.
Sure. Well, I mean, and we can always,
I think that June and July both, or the proposed dates are both dates that we'd be meeting on regardless of a change.
Right. They make sense to me.
I guess we could, I mean, the 29th would fall on what day?
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we were going, but it's gonna be a full meeting now, rather than just to
Correct.
approve
Yes, sir.
the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I won't be here for that.
I'll make the motion to approve the proposed changes. I think that it works.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Prost.
Yes.
All right. Our next item is the resolution and agreement consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull or discuss further?
I would like to pull R 2546, just for further discussion to I want to talk about what we're doing there, since that's in my district.
Okay. Let's see.
Not that I'm against it, I just want to find out.
Do we have any input from anyone on this resolution?
Is Landon Blackman here?
You can go ahead and approve the consent agenda, with the exception of that
With that,
one.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution agreement consent agenda excluding R 2546.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Prost.
Yes.
You have a question for me? I just want to know what we're talking about on this. Kind of explain it to me, what we're doing.
At some point during the history of this property, the previous owners built a house into the right-of-way.
Okay.
And it was a right-of-way that was created back in the 30s.
Actually, I believe it was back in early 1900s, 1919, 1909, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So the current owner is trying to sell the property. The property itself is built into the right-of-way. About half of the house is on the right-of-way. And so this resolution is to vacate that piece of the property that's mostly on Sunrise Road, but a little bit of it goes down Horizon Road. Sunrise Road is an unpaved road. It's just an easement at this point. I guess that's about it. I don't know that is there anything else that concerns you about it?
What are we doing? We're going to vacate it, and so exactly what would we do when we vacated it? Just
Yeah, we're just vacating just the part that's around the house there.
okay,
And where they built their fence along Horizon Road,
and so
which is about 5 feet.
so it facilitate and help them in selling their piece of property.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
That's what I wanted to know.
And to add to that as well, the original platted right-of-way from 19 whenever was actually wider than we require now. It was platted at about 85 feet. Going out and measuring this, there's still road between there. Properties actually on both sides have encroached, north and south in that particular portion and intersection. Again, this is just vacating about 30 feet into Horizon, the right of way for Horizon.
In trying to sell.
It will, and it still
That's what I
allows
care about.
plenty of room for the utilities and the roadway.
Okay. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion in 2 seconds. Please call for the vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Prost.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, item 25, travel request consent agenda. Any questions, anything? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion is second. Please call for the vote.
Who seconded?
I did.
Klein?
Yes.
Cordova?
Yes.
Bowen?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Trost?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, do we have any emergency business today? Okay, seeing none, we will move into elected official department comments, announcements, and updates. Nothing? All right. Then we will move into county manager's comments, announcements, and updates.
Madam Chair, I don't have any comments.
Okay, very good. Last item, county commissioner comments. Commissioner Trust.
Just want to commend everybody if within the county on the work that they do, because I think this is a really well-run county. I don't have experience outside of Eddy County, but I just tell you this flows so well. And then I want to remind everybody that on the county website, there is a menu you can pull down and submit concern over roadways or your codes or you know, anything like that. And I can tell you firsthand that they get on it quickly, because I put one in using an employee's name, so it wasn't me. And you know, not just to exclude special priority, right? And 2 days later, they were out working on it. So kudos to the road department and to the county for keeping up on what they say they're going to do, because when you use it, they do it.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. It's important that, you know, our citizens know how they can communicate with us. So, thank you. Commissioner Klein.
Yeah, I was just gonna say what Commissioner Trost said. Having worked with the county from the outside over so many years, I know the county's changed a lot, a lot more money coming through, a lot more activity, and it is very, very impressive what this whole team does to make all of this work and to get stellar audits and so on. I'm just really impressed with our county and really appreciate all of you for the work you do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Commissioner Carlson. Commissioner Bowman.
Just real quick, a compliment to the Public Works Department. A constituent forwarded me a Facebook post of a road that was being repaired by the county. They took the picture halfway through the job and made some comments kind of beating down the job that was being done. I got the person's number, reached out to him, and by the time I had called him, the road had been refinished, and he said that he was probably a little premature in making the post. So he praised the work that was done afterwards, so kudos to you guys. And then last Wednesday, I spoke at an AXPC meeting, which is basically NMOGA for the federal government for the United States. There was 18 congressional staffers there from all across the United States, 2 BLM officials, and some industry partners there. And it was a good place, a good time for us to showcase the benefits and the impact that oil and gas has on our county, on our schools, and so many other things to help us be as successful as we are, not just the county specifically, but our state. So it was really good for, I think, members of different congressmen and women's staff to see how impactful oil and gas revenue is to small communities like us. That's all I got, guys.
Thank you. Well, again, to kind of echo what we've already discussed today, Eddy County is a great place to work. And we want to encourage people, you know, to stay here, to live here, to work here, to bring outside resources here that are going to benefit our citizens. And so I'm very grateful for the work that everybody's doing. I'm hopeful that we are going to have good candidates that want to come work for us here. Also, Sheriff Hutchinson, I heard you had a great time on Saturday, and good for you for doing all that.
It was nerve-wracking.
It was.
nailed it.
Did you win?
No, I lost.
Do you want to tell them who you lost to?
Frankie Davis or Elvis. But you raised a lot of money for United Way, which was sure.
Well, very good. And also to you, Commissioner Klein, I know you're involved in all of that, so thank you. And, wish everybody the best over these next couple of weeks, and just thank you for everything that you do. And with that, we are done.